Nice to have you all here. My name is Nick Vannello, and I'm going to be introducing Brad in just a little bit. We are here with Yuli, and we're thrilled that we're going to be able to spend some time with you guys here today. So, quick show of hands, or think this to yourself. When you are planning travel, how many of you are using more than 5 tools? How many of you are using more than 5 tools? So, if you're saying that's me, that's normal. Congratulations. And if your hand isn't up yet, or you don't think that that's you, don't worry. We'll get you there in just a minute or two. So, before we go any further, I should probably identify what I mean by tools. Okay. When I say tools, I mean everything that you rely on to run a trip. So, software platforms, spreadsheets, email inboxes, document creation tools, shared drives, CRMs, graphic tools, itinerary builders, forms, paper checklists, and maybe the most important, that certain person in the office or on your team that holds all kinds of stuff together in their brain. Okay. For me, that is my Bob who keeps all of the travel flight information together. So he's a very important resource to me. Okay. So if you were mentally counting and thought, oh, I only use 2 or 3, and then suddenly you realize there's that spreadsheet, oh, and that Google Doc, and oh, of course, that person, you're in the right room. So let's make it official. Grab your phones again. Let's ask the question one more time. So, how many tools do you actually use to manage a single trip? Go ahead and tell us. Yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting to see. That's exactly what I was expecting to see. Awesome. Okay. A little tech therapy here. If that makes you feel badly, don't worry. You are not behind. You are not messy. You are not bad at your job. What you're doing is what pretty much every educational, nonprofit, or institutional travel program does. And that's they solve real problems as they show up. So you added tools as you needed them. And over time, those tools started solving fewer problems than they actually created. So today is not about shaming your systems, and it's not about ranking software. And it's definitely not about telling you what you're doing wrong. Today is just about getting clarity over the entire thing. All right. So here's what you're going to walk away with today. Okay. When you walk away out of this session, you're going to end up with a clear inventory of what's actually in your tech stack, the red flags that quietly create risk and burnout, the top 3 fixes, not 10, not the whole thing, and a 30-day action plan that you can actually execute. And all of this without purchasing any more software. All right. And just to make sure that this isn't just theory or me flapping my gums, I'm going to share with you somebody who's actually lived this from the inside. I'm going to turn you over to my buddy, Brad.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. I've met some of you all just in my role here at Yulee, but just to introduce myself, if I haven't met you, I'm Brad King. I spend most of my time chatting with organizations like and folks like yourself to really look at their tech, their workflows, and explore if Yulee can help bring any relief and improvements to their systems or how we can. So I'm excited to be here and talk to you all about Frankenstack. What do we mean when we say Frankenstack? Well, let's define it for this activity here. First off, it's a patchwork of systems. Visually, as you can see, it's a little ugly, and let's be honest, not going to win any beauty contests here. However, it may kind of work. You may be sitting there going, yeah, it kind of works until you scale, until you experience staff turnover, until you hit a crisis, until those things. We won't worry about those things, right? But until then, it may kind of work. The patchwork of tools, it's disconnected, it's manual, and you've stitched it together as you've needed new pieces. As a new need came up, you slapped on a new solution and to get that fix. And don't be ashamed. That's a really common process. That is the typical process. If we can jump to the next slide there, Nick. So this combination of tools, it was likely built out of necessity, but now it's costing you time, it's costing you money, and maybe worst of all, costing you sanity or sleep. May sound familiar to you all. So don't worry, you're not alone, and it's not too late to start making improvements. I won't do a kumbaya where we all have to say it aloud, but just say it to yourself or write it down. It's not too late to make those improvements. Jumping on to the next slide here, I'd like you to take a minute for you to think about what makes up your Frankenstack. We talked about the numbers of tools. So now we're talking about what makes up your Frankenstack. Take a few minutes to share what tools you and your team use on a weekly basis. And don't worry about hitting everything. Just think about some of the pieces. So if you can jump on Minty and share some of those tools, just type them in. We'd love to see some of them. Awesome. Your CRM, Drive. Yep. If you have a specific CRM, love to hear that. Gmail, sure. Email
Uh,
or Google Drive. Yes. Taking over. We're being swallowed up by
Logo.
Google Drive. That is not uncommon. Yeah. Zoom. Sure. Here we are. Nice. Itinerary builder. Awesome. Facebook. Yeah. Good one. Social media. Absolutely. Your website. Love it. Yeah. We all use, multiple tools. So I appreciate you jumping in Riverside. Okay. Jumping in. It's probably multiple answers. You may see, obviously you're seeing some common ones there with the ones as they get enlarged as you get in there and answer those. Obviously, we're all jumping in and using email or Google Drive or Gmail, Outlook, Excel spreadsheets or Excel or Google Sheets is a common one. Jot form, Stripe, these are different ones that often pop up, right? And in many businesses, depending on the size of your business, you may not even know all the tools, right? Nick over there in the corner does accounting. He may have no idea what he's doing, over there to manage that accounting. So, but you're beginning to see right here that there's a mixed match of various resources, even within these here in the room. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass it back to Nick here in a moment. We're going to talk about the program life cycle. And Danny, we're a small group, so I just want to welcome you to the group. And up at the top, if you can see that screen, you can join minty.com and type in that code, and you can be interactive with us as we go along through the workshop. So welcome.
Welcome, welcome. All right, folks, before we start talking about fixing tools or reducing tools or taming anything, we're going to rewind for just a second because most of the pain that you might be feeling has nothing to do with which tools you're using. It has to do about where those tools are showing up in the life of the program. So, what do I mean by that? This is a simplified version of a travel program life cycle, not the brochure version. This is just an operational one. So, first there's interest, then there's inquiry, and registration, and payments, and forms and waivers, travel communications, operations handoff, travel, and then post travel. Nothing on this slide is surprising, but what is surprising is how rarely we see the entire thing at once. Most programs don't actually manage a system, they manage moments. What do I mean by that? So, when someone emails with the question, when a payment fails, when a medical form is missing, when a vendor needs a rooming list, when someone says, "Hey, where do we keep that?" We all respond the way that humans do. We patch the moment. We add a form, we add a spreadsheet, we add a workaround, we add another tool. And none of these choices are wrong in its isolation. The problem shows up always in the handoffs. What do I mean by that? The handoff is every place this flow changes hands, from interest to inquiry, from registration to payment, from forms to operations. That's where that friction tends to show up. That's where data ends up getting re entered. Context gets lost. People end up filling out the same thing twice. And usually one person winds up holding the whole thing together with experience, memory, and just a little bit of mental effort. Okay. So let's get practical. We are not here to fix your tech today. We're not here to standardize everybody on the same piece of software. And we are certainly not here to have you rebuild your entire stack from scratch. What we are doing is identifying where your workflow actually breaks down. And then we're going to look at which parts of your Frankenstack are under its most strain. And that's it. Just a little bit of clarity. And then we'll do decisions second. Now, because once you know where the friction lives, you're going to stop blaming yourselves for the problems that were never personal in the first place. Brad, why don't you talk to us about the different parts of the Frankenstack monster?
Thanks, Nick. I'd love to. So before we really get associated with your particular Frankenstack, we're going to talk about the parts of the monster and how those tools are categorized. So simply going to go head to toe. First, we're going to start up at the head. Inside our head, we have our brains, right? The monster's brain. The brain, it's your traveler profile data. Think all the information you've collected on your travelers, from their name, their contact information, dietary preferences, passports, flight information, names of people in their party, times they arrive, when they depart, everything, all the different information pieces, all the different details you have on those travelers. And think about the tools where this information lives or how it's collected, and where it's stored. Next, move on down, we have our eyes. Think about your eyes as your reporting function. So, any tools used to provide a summary of information that's living up in your brain, providing a summary that you need in some sort of organized manner. That could be a transfer list, room assignments, financial reports, anything that you need organized and seen in a different viewpoint. Below our eyes, we have our mouth. These are our communication tools. How are we communicating not only with our travelers, with our vendors, our internal staff, our external collaborators, such as teachers or chaperones or tour operators, and even your board or your supervisor or boss or owners, anybody that you're communicating with. Moving on down, we've got our arms and hands. Very thoughtful, right? We're reaching out, we're grabbing and capturing that information. How do you gather all that information? Think PDFs or scanned forms, more emails, electronic forms, Google Forms, Jot forms, more emails, phone, maybe in person, maybe more emails. So just how are you capturing all that information? What tools are you using there? Next, we're going to move down and check in with our gut, our stomach. Where's our payment and accounting process tools live? So think about the tools you use to collect payment, invoice vendors, track trip income and expenses, even monitor overall business financial health. So, what are the tools that you're using to collect and hold all that financial data? Moving on down, we've got our legs. We arrive at the legs that represent the operations. These are the tools that we use for so much of our business. Everything from planning and facilitating trips or concluding the trips. It may include tools for staffing, allocating staff responsibilities, booking logistics such as transfers or flights, building and updating the itineraries, contracting with vendors. The list goes on, right? So we've got a lot we do with the legs of our monster, and we know there's many more layers to those operations. And so think about those tools. And lastly, we have our feet, where the tools live for handing off or kicking off the information to our vendors or to our operators. This may be as simple as handing a paper roster to a bus transfer driver or providing a tour operator with all pertinent information for your travelers that you've collected, from dietary and health information to all their other personal contact information, emergency contacts, all that information. So how are you handing and kicking that information off to others? So you may now be getting a sense for how the basic monster in this screen right here easily transforms into that Frankenstack on that earlier screen with all the different tools spread all around. So it grows quickly into that Frankenstack.
All right. So earlier today, Brad sent out a Frankenstack sheet for you to fill out. And what we're going to do is fill in your parts in just a moment. Now, nobody's going to grade it. Nobody has to say the name of their tools out loud. This is just for you. So go ahead and grab a pencil or a pen or whatever, and we're going to begin. So grab your worksheet, grab something to write with, and let's take a look here. All right. So on the worksheet in front of you, you're going to see all the same categories that Brad just walked you through. So payments, data, forms, communications, operations, reporting. We're going to do three things with this. And I promise it's going to be a lot more useful if you don't overthink it. All right. First, I want you to write down which tools you actually use for each category. Not what you meant to use, not what you should be using, but what actually happens on a Tuesday afternoon. So if the honest answer is two spreadsheets in an inbox, that's what you're going to write down. And like I said, no judgment. This is just about reality. We'll give you a full minute on this. Super. All right. So now I want you to take a look at what you wrote. And I want you to circle anything that shows up more than once. Same information, the same place. Because this is where time quietly leaks out of your week and starts making you susceptible to errors. And just to be clear, you don't have to fix anything yet. You're not solving anything. You're just noticing what's going on. All right. So take a moment or two to look at your answers, and again, circle anything that has the same information or might be in more than one place. Okay. And now the last thing we're going to do on this sheet, and this is the important one, I want you to put a star next to the system or person that would send you into a panic if it or they disappeared tomorrow. Be honest with yourself. If you first thought, oh my God, we'd be in trouble if that disappeared or that person quit, that's the right answer. So go ahead and put a star next to those. So if your sheet now looks like a holy mess with all kinds of scribbles and lines and circles and stars, that's not failure. That's okay. It's just a snapshot. It's just a clear picture of where things are today. And that's exactly what we need to move forward. All right. Now, Brad is going to take all of that information and show you where the red flags are. Here we go.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. So for now, let's take that worksheet, just sit it aside. We are going to come back to it, but for now you can sit it aside. Just keep it close. Now that you've all started to identify tools of your monster, I want to talk about some common red flags when it comes to processes and procedures. This is where your systems may be broken or may need some attention. And I like to say in this reference for Frankenstack, think of these as the nightmares within your business, right? So I'm going to read the first example here, and then I want you to just kind of read through the rest on your own. So duplicated data entry or capturing information in more than one spot. Really common red flag. Why is it a red flag? Well, it can lead to conflicting and inaccurate versions of data. So here you have conflicting or different information on your travelers. So take a look at this list and see if the processes and procedures on the left sound familiar. Then look over to the right and see why these can be problematic, which are probably things you've experienced. Try to think about actual specific circumstance when you've dealt with conflicting or lost information or one of those other challenges, maybe inaccessible data in someone else's inbox, right? And the impact that had on you, had on the trip, or even the business as a whole. And I'll give you a minute to think about those situations and outcomes that you've experienced. So, thinking about these impacts and outcomes that can result from those broken systems, I want you to think about your own processes and share which of these pain points hit you the hardest right now in your business. You can select as many that resonate with you. So it doesn't have to be one. You can select, 1, 3, 8, however many resonate with you. Yeah. Yeah, some duplicated data entry, lost forms, disconnected payments. Absolutely. Inbox is the database. Of course it's the database. That's common. That's normal. We've all been there. Absolutely. And conflicting reports. Sure. Awesome. Any others there? All right. Well, as you can see, there's lots of pain points out there that folks are experiencing. So you're not alone in having concerns to address. So I'll pass this back to Nick. He's going to help us understand how do we start to tame our Frankenstack? What's the concepts we need to do to jump into to tame things down?
All right. So, up to this point, we've been really good at diagnosing the problem. We've named the monster, we've seen where it hurts, and we've been honest about why it's so exhausting. And now comes the part that everybody quietly worries about. What do I actually do about this? All right. And I want to be very clear about something before we go any further. This is not where we start taking out the checkbook and buying more tools. That's not this point. This is not about platforms or not software, not shiny new systems, okay? This is where we decide how we want our weeks to feel. Because if you skip this part, you're just going to rebuild the same stress inside of a different tool. All right. So, what you're going to see are not features, they're not software requirements, they're principles. And the reason that matters is so that you can apply these principles no matter what tools you already have. Old system, new system, Frankenstack held together with duct tape. These principles are going to travel with you. Principle number one source of truth. If you remember nothing else today, remember this one. One place where all of the traveler data is correct. Not the prettiest, not the newest, the one that you can trust. This is the difference between answering a question in 10 seconds and spending 15 minutes checking in 3 places to figure out which answer is right. And this difference is where your energy goes to die. Principle number 2, capture once, reuse wherever. Every time someone types in the same information twice, you pay for it. You pay in time, you pay in errors, and eventually you're going to end up paying in frustration. This is how simple admin quietly turns into late nights and that low level feeling of always being behind. Principle number three, automate your reminders. Okay. Most follow ups don't need a human brain attached to them, they need a clock. Every reminder that you can automate is one less thing that you're carrying in your head. And that mental load adds up faster than you realize. Number four, centralized communication. When communication lives in five different email boxes and two different chat threads, nobody feels confidence. And people start double checking and forwarding messages and asking, "Did you see this?" This is where staff burnout shows up quietly, not in big explosions, just constant low grade tension. And then principle number five, visibility. Visibility isn't about control. It's not about being surprised. It's knowing when something is late. It's knowing when something is missing, when somebody needs help. Surprises are expensive. They cost time, trust, and emotional energy. And none of this is about working harder. You guys already do that fine. This is about removing friction little by little. And when you do, change doesn't happen all at once. It happens in ways that you can actually feel during your week. So, with that, I'm going to turn this over to Brad, and he's going to help us triage all of this.
All right. Thank you, Nick. So, Nick just mentioned expense, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So, we're going to pull those worksheets back over if you've still got that handy. And looking at your monster, I'd like you to begin to think about what are the areas that are the most inflamed? Where's your, where do you have some inflammation in your monster? And before you mark anything, take a moment to think about, I want to talk about, I should say, what inflamed means as far as this exercise. Specifically, we're talking about expensive and expensive in the following ways. It's expensive in time, in risk exposure, in negative traveler experience, or team burnout. So these are expenses that we want to avoid. So what I want you to do is I want you to mark your top three inflamed areas on your monster with a dollar sign or currency sign. Just put that symbol next to the category such as communication or traveler profile data and mark three, your top three with a dollar or currency sign. I'll give you just a moment to do that. Now, you may still be wrapping that up. That's okay, picking those three. But next to that currency sign, next to that dollar sign, I want you to label what the inflammation is appropriately as we talked about those expenses. Is it inflamed due to an expensive time, risk, traveler experience, burnout? Just mark it right next to those dollar signs. And you may have multiple expenses or inflammations next to a single category. That's okay, not uncommon. Just mark them as why are they inflamed? Give a little description, and that description of just those words: time, risk, traveler experience, or burnout. I'll give you a few seconds to work on that. All right. So you're maybe seeing some trends. You may have time in multiple areas. You may have, traveler experience popping up in multiple categories, but seeing what that inflammation is and looking at those inflammation descriptions. I want you to identify what's your number one issue. Meaning, is it a time issue? Is it a burnout issue? Is it the traveler experience? Pick one. As far as inflammation, what's your number one inflammation issue? And write that expense right at the top of the page in all caps. So time all the way at the top, or burnout, traveler experience, risk, whichever the one is that you is your biggest concern, your biggest inflammation, write it down up at the top. And while you're wrapping that up, I'll just ask if there's any questions on that, because this is kind of that self work where you're mapping out your own, identifying your own inflammation, your own challenges. So, is there any questions? You can drop them in the chat or just speak up, unmute and speak up. I'll pause for a moment and let you all ask. Okay. So next, what I'm going to do, Nick, if we can jump to the next slide, is I would love for you to share which category is the most common issue on your worksheet. What is the biggest number one concern on your worksheet? Is it that time? risk exposure, traveler experience, or team burnout. We'd love to hear what your number one inflammation is. Again, all anonymous. We're not going to call anybody out. Just love to see. All right, we've got time, traveler experience, risk. Yep, variety of them there.
Nobody's burned out. You can have some of my workload.
Burnout can be yourself, right? Your team burnout, you could be the team. There's teams of one out there. We know this. So that could be your biggest concern. All right. Well, now that we've identified some areas that need attention, I'm going to pass it back to Nick and he's going to start to talk about how do we address these concerns? What do we do with this information?
So this is where we're going to turn that insight into something that actually changes your week. And I want to say this out loud because a lot of people in this room need to hear it. You do not need a perfect system in 30 days. You just need to do one thing better. This isn't a transformation plan, it's a relief plan. All right. 30 days is going to be enough time for you to map just one workflow, remove one duplicate step, and stop one recurring headache. And it's enough time to feel less behind. And once one thing gets better, the next thing gets easier. And so it's easier to name. So let's take a look and see what that first win looks like. Week one. This is where we're going to turn insight into something that actually changes your week. Week one is very simple. You're going to pick one workflow, not your entire program, not all of the trips, just one thing that's broken. Maybe it's registration, maybe it's payments or forms or communications. Pick one thing that causes you the most friction, the one thing that lives in most places. And here's the most important part. The goal is not to fix it at this point. Okay, the goal is just to see it clearly from start to finish. Every handoff, every tool, every place information gets copied, delayed, or lost. Once again, this isn't a transformation plan, it's a relief plan. Once you understand the workflow clearly, everything else is going to get easier to prioritize and eventually improve. All right. Week two is where you decide where truth lives. And I want to be really clear when I talk about that and what it does not mean. It doesn't mean that you move everything. It doesn't mean a big system overhaul. And it doesn't mean a new migration project. It simply means that you stop arguing with yourself about which version is real. When everyone on your team knows exactly where the truth lives, something shifts. Decisions get faster, questions get quieter, and suddenly hours start coming back to your week. So if you've got traveler data in several places. And once you update it in one place, you're duplicating that information someplace else, especially manually. Okay. We're going to stop that. We're going to figure out where the truth lives. All right. Now, week three is where people actually start to feel lighter after that. This is the week where you remove one duplicate step, just one, not the whole system, not every problem that you've had, just one. So if the same information is being typed in twice, you're going to pick one place where it belongs and you're going to let the other one go. No debates. Okay. No, just in case, no backup spreadsheet tucked away in a folder called Final. This is where you're going to start feeling immediate relief because every duplicate step you remove is one less place where it can break or where it can get lost or a place that's going to cause confusion. And once that thing disappears, you're going to start noticing how much everything else actually doesn't need to be there either. And then we get to week four. And this is the week where we stop trying to remember everything ourselves, because this is the week where we start automating one reminder, just one. Maybe it's medical forms or final payments or departure information. Anything that's currently living in your head or on a, God forbid, a sticky note or in a calendar that only one person on your team ever looks at. Every reminder that you automate is one less thing that you're carrying around with you, and it's one less follow up to track. It's one less late night email that you forgot to send, and one less thing that's going to wake you up at 2 in the morning because you're not sure if you actually submitted that information. And your system starts remembering for you. Once that happens, something's going to shift and you start getting your attention back. And that's the difference between managing chaos and actually running a program. Now, some of you are going to take this back and sit down with your team and work through it on your own, and that's great. And then some of you are going to go look at that thing that you just chose and realize that you want a second pair of eyes on it. And that's cool too. That's not failing. Okay. That's normal. Complex programs don't get clear just by accident. They get clearer when we slow down, name what actually matters, and stop carrying everything in our heads. So if you take this back to your team and map it yourself, great. If you get a second pair of eyes on it to pressure test it, that's also super. There's no requirement, just an option. What matters most is this. So your small intentional wins are going to add up faster than people expect. Burnout isn't about effort. You're already working hard. It comes from all that friction we've been talking about, doing things twice, holding details in your head. Okay. Start removing that friction, even a little bit at a time, and change will begin to happen. Not all at once, not overnight, but in ways that you can actually feel. Okay. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Brad, who's going to leave you with one final frame that you can take with you. And Brad, have at it.
All right. Thanks, Nick. All right. So, just in summer, we've talked about monsters, and we've talked about all these different pieces, and you've scribbled all over your worksheet. I just want to send you off with a couple key points here. One is your tech should be serving your business. Seems seems obvious, right? But come back to that. Looking at your pieces, are they serving your business? How are they helping you? How are they supporting you? Is it necessary or is it causing more challenge? If it's costing you time, if it's increasing risk, negatively impacting your traveler experience and burning out your team, you now know how to fix it, how to start to work to fix it, and what to demand from your system. You should demand that it works. You've created it. You've created your Frankenstack, or maybe a predecessor if you're coming to an organization, but it's now your monster to care for and to improve. If you've really enjoyed the activity here and you'd like to dive deeper, you can move forward with taming your Frankenstack even further. You can check out our more extensive tech therapy program. This is where we work specifically with you one-on-one and really go through a therapy program with you. That's what it's in the name, right? So I'll send out more information about this in a follow-up post the workshop, and you can dive deeper into your tech and the path to a healthier stack. Yeah. So if you've got any questions that you didn't get to ask throughout or you've been holding on to, drop them in the chat, drop them on Minty, and we will, or just unmute and raise your hand, and we'll let you speak up here. We'd love to answer those for you.
You'll notice that we did not push Yuli at all today. We want you to find the system that's going to work for you. Now, personally, Yuli's a super system for my needs. And if you're not on Yuli and you're interested, give us a holler. I'll be happy to walk through a demo for you, and maybe it'll solve some of these tools for you.
And even if you are, it's great to go through this and see where Yuli fits into your stack. How is it a part of your stack? And how is it supporting your business? And looking at, are you on the right plan? Are you, are you tapping into all the capabilities of the plan you have and of Yuli to really bring relief and to serve your business? Yeah. And you're welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, I'd like a demo.
Excellent, Danny. Fantastic. We would love to do a demo with you. I will shoot you a link where you can get scheduled for a demo so we can learn more about the business you're building, Danny, and or working on, and we can do a demo with you.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you haven't had a demo with us before, my job isn't to sell you Yuli. My job is to see if Yuli is going to meet your needs. I talked with two people this morning and did demos for them, and Yuli was not the right tool for them. Sometimes that happens. But if you're looking for a new solution, meet with me and I'll be very, very honest with you. So I think it's a great application and a great platform. And the customer service is remarkable.
Well, thank you all so much for joining. It's been great chatting with you and walking through this with you. Don't hesitate to reach out to Nick or I. I shot you that email earlier with the worksheet, so don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. For those of you that were like on a phone and on the move and couldn't do everything, we'll send this recording. So if you want to go through this on your own, you can do that.
Sounds awesome. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us, everyone. Take care.
Hey,
Have a great day.
thank you, everyone.